Hello, welcome to this episode of Voyage Joie. This is a channel, if you have poked around, where we have sort of, kind of broadly, an introduction to world poetry going on. It started out as where I was just reading my own poetry, and then I was like, you know what? I'm never going to monetize this channel because I want to share the joy of poetry. Whether it's mine or other people's, it doesn't matter, and I don't want to stomp on people's copyrights. I just want to share the joy of poetry. So we won't monetize this channel, and also, by not monetizing the channel, I can say what I want, and I don't have to worry about censorship. Because I don't like censorship. So, I'm against that. So, this way, I can say what I want. I don't have to worry about censorship because censorship ruins art, it ruins expression, it ruins free critical thinking. And we just bypass all of that by avoiding monetization. And and then we can share the joy of poetry and just enjoy art and not have to worry about all that ickiness, right? Right. If you want to enjoy my monetized content, that is on Instagram and Facebook. And that's where I do fashion stuff for disabled people. It's called adaptive fashion. And also just general content, period. It's very eclectic. But that's where my monetized content is. But here we just do poetry and enjoy it. And because that's what it's about. And this channel has been here since 2011. There is so much to enjoy, so much to explore. Have fun, dive around. You'll see how the channel has evolved over the years. There have been years where I haven't uploaded anything because I moved, and then I didn't have, it took me years to unpack, and then I didn't have the equipment I needed, and then I went through health challenges where I couldn't record. And so, I finally got myself on a semi-regular schedule the last couple of years where I post one video a year. I'm still dealing with technical issues, which I hope that I have finally figured out. We will see. But, the ebb and flow of the years of life. You will see me get older and all that jazz. But the focus is on the poetry, and you should be able to find a wide variety of stuff that you enjoy. I read it in the English language because it's the language I'm most familiar with, and it is the lingua franca of the internet. If I said that correctly, I hope my mouth said it correctly. But if you find it in its original language, by all means, read it there. Read it side by side with its English translation or any other translation you find, because poetry in translation is its own art, and it's often quite a different thing from the original. So I encourage enjoying art in all its forms, if as much as you are able with the, because the human brain and what we are able to take in our lifetime is limited. I'm one of those people that I'm all about continuing to learn, continuing to expand. I've always been quite the curious person, but we only live for so many years. We can only read so many books and all that. I understand. But take in as much as you can within the limits of yourself and the limits of your interests as well. And just enjoy it all. Enjoy it as much as you can gather, right? Anyway, today we are reading a poem by Victoria Chang, a U.S. poet. I don't know a lot about her, so this is my first dive into her. This is a poem called Red Bird. Apparently, on this site where I'm reading it from, it's also been translated into Dutch, which makes sense because this is a site called Poetry International. It's one of my favorite sites. It first started out with a different name way back in 20 years ago, and I said way back 20 years ago I was going to read every poem that they had on this site. I still haven't succeeded because they are constantly adding new poems and new poets from all over the world. It is also a beautiful place for an introduction to world poetry. And I believe it is based in the Netherlands, so it makes sense that they would have a Dutch translation. But we're going to read a poem by hers called Redbird 1964. So here we go. I've only seen a dead bird up close once. It wasn't red, but blue. That's appropriate. I'm wearing lots of blue today. I named it Happiness before I buried it. My child found a few sticks so we could make a cross. We dug a hole and dropped the bird in, along with a few flowers we plucked. We didn't touch the bird with our bare hands in case death was contagious. When I put the cross into the ground, I felt that Nietzsche was wrong. Happiness isn't the feeling that power increases. The lake isn't a marketplace. The small pencil marks on the painting aren't measuring anything. Seeing the dead bird up close only made me want to cover it, not sell its feelings. I am far away from it, in another house, but I still have the bird's feelings in a small box. Each spring, I can't see the baby birds in the rafters that when hungry sound like death. All these months, I thought they were birds, but it turns out they were really rats, and the feelings in the small box were my own. Oh, I could say so much about birds. I love birds. I love horses and I love birds. Well, I love all animals, but I feed the wild birds. I had a couple birds as a pet, but I lived in this apartment building, and I didn't know at the time that one of the neighbors was doing illegal things, and it was causing fumes in the whole building, and it killed both my birds really fast. And I've never had birds as a pet since. Excuse me. Well, there are the moral implications of birds should be able to go out and fly. That's what they were created to do. So having a bird in a cage kind of bothers me anyway. But the birds that you generally buy as pets cannot live in the wild where I live because this is not their climate. So if they get out in the wild here, they won't survive the winter. So there's that. I mean, if you've got that moral conundrum, don't worry about that because parakeets generally don't survive very long. Here, it gets too cold, or a tropical bird. But, yeah, there's the whole thing with birds in cages that kind of bothers me. So I ended up not having birds as pets anymore after that. If I ever do have a bird as a pet, I might just get a native bird, like if it gets injured or something and it can't survive on its own anymore. That would be something I would be morally okay with. Yeah. But anyway, that's the whole thing. And it's funny because my birds were like, one of them was called Whistle and the other one was It's Been a Long Time. So it was Whistle and what was the other one called? The second one I only had a week, bless its little heart. So its name is not with me right now. Not right now. And I have trouble with name recall anyway. I'll think of it later when I'm not trying to remember it. And I'll be like, ugh. But it was something like that. Because you think of birds, you think of lots of energy, so I can see why she named it that. And it's smart not to touch a dead bird with your hands, especially nowadays with the whole bird flu thing. I'm sure you've heard about that. And it has developed the ability to transfer to humans. So, like, even when I feed my wild birds, I put the food out, I come in and I wash my hands, just in case. Very, very smart not to touch a wild bird with your hands, with your bare hands, and if you do, wash your hands immediately before you touch anything else, including your own self. Yeah, that's very smart. Just the bare bones practicalness of it. But then she's got lots of symbology here. Now, the symbology of a dead bird, I looked at it once. Now, I'm not a superstitious person, but I do like to look up what people believe superstitiously about things, because when you read poetry, you need to know what these symbols are and how people view things, because they come up in poems a lot, and they help you to understand the poems. So a lot of times I will look up symbols and things like that, what the superstitions are around things, even though I tend not to believe in those things, just because it helps you to understand what a person is writing about when it comes to the poem. A lot of, because they will use them as metaphors and stuff and poems. And I think she hits on some of that here because, and really it depends on the culture when it comes to dead birds. Some people consider dead birds a bad omen. Some people consider them a good omen. Some people consider it an omen of transition. So it's neither good nor bad. It just means you're in a moment of transition in your life. It just really depends on what culture you're from, and that kind of complicates the issue. You really need to know a little something about the poet who wrote the poem. um, and I think that comes into this poem a little bit too, because she's obviously the bird, the dead bird, is a metaphor for feelings and happiness, and then for her own feelings, of course, and then at the end, it turns out that they weren't birds, they were rats. And the feelings were my own. See, so yeah, there's a whole deep undercurrent going on here. So I've had a couple dead birds show up on my porch, and they do that whenever you feed them regularly and they decide that your yard is their home. They become your resident birds, then they will end up dying in your space because they're resident birds and your home is the safe place. And so, and they like to die in their safe place, which makes sense. We all like to die in our safe place. Whether we get to do that or not is another question, because there are laws and stuff, and as we get older we end up moving into nursing homes and things like that. We don't necessarily get to do what we want, but most of us, if you ask somebody, would prefer to die at home or on their porch in the sunshine, or asleep in their bed, in their safe place. And the animals are the same way. They prefer to die in their safe place. And so birds do that too. So if you feed birds on a regular basis, you will start to see dead birds around your property because your home becomes their safe place. So don't freak out, okay? Just handle it. But like I said, don't touch a dead bird with your bare hands. Just to be safe because of the bird flu thing. And if you do, wash your hands immediately before you touch anything else. It's just part of the stewardship of the wild birds that you feed. That's all. That's all. It's just part of your stewardship of nature, the nature that you live around. Stewardship, part of stewardship of animals, whether you own them or you just attract them in with whatever is the death process. It's part of it. People don't like to think of that too much, especially the animal activists, but that's part of stewardship of the earth and the animals is stewarding through their death process, just like it's part of being a caregiver for being part of your family unit and part of your community. Stewardship through the death process is part of that too. That's something that in modern times we try to put away from us. Even as humans and even in our human interactions, we want to put that away from us and just show up for the funeral. But that's not how that works. That's not how it should work. We've become so divorced from natural processes that we don't even know what stewardship really is anymore. But it's maybe that's because I'm part indigenous, and maybe that's coming from that background in me. But I was taught stewardship, and that's part of the stewardship process. When you make decisions. How is this going to affect 7, 8, 9 generations below me? That are born after that I'm not even going to know. How is this going to affect them? Am I going to leave it? What am I going to leave behind for them? And you got to take care of your elders. You got to take care of your cousins and your not just your immediate family, but also your extended family. You're thinking in terms of. You're not just thinking in terms of how does this benefit me. You're thinking in terms of stewardship for the community and stewardship for the past stewardship for the past and what was passed on to you and what should be passed on to others, because of that generational thing. Because what was passed on to you, they meant to be passed on to others. And I bet you're also thinking in terms of passing on to the future. And so there's the whole circle of life thing. And you are just a cog in that wheel. It's not about one person. It's about the big picture and the whole. And you are just a steward in that. You're just a cog in the wheel, taking care of it so that it can be handed. It was handed to you by somebody who took care of it. Now it's your job to take care of it so it can be handed on down and continue to be handed on down. You are just a steward. You are just a caretaker. You are not the end-all, be-all God of it. You are just the caretaker. And I think that's something that has been lost in modern thinking. It has been lost in just certain, the whole imperialist colonial way of thinking, period, does not have that. And it's harmful. So it's good to step back and be part of the process, the Earth's process. Really, it's just being part of the Earth's process, the natural process, the natural order of things. Instead of trying to take ourselves outside of the natural process and be lord over it and be like, see, I can control the natural process. No, you're not here to control the natural process. You're here to be part of it. Part of it. See, that's but anyway. That's our poem for today. I know I tend to talk a lot. Anyway, that's our poem for today, and I hope you will join me here for the next episode of Poésie Joie. You have a fabulous day, week, month, and I'll see you here next month. I'm going to get off here because this is Belmont Day, and I have a couple more things I need to film before I can sit down, before I can make myself lunch and sit down and watch the race. I'll see you here soon. Thank you for joining me, and don't go hunting. Oh, I should have took my gloves off already so I could turn off the video. Don't go hunting.